Well, welcome everybody to Palm Beach JavaScript. For all the first timers out there, hi, I'm Jeremy. This is a monthly event we have on the last Tuesday of every month. My co-host is Damian Montero. He runs the Boca JS, which is the first Tuesday of every month. Right, links in the chat. Um, Today we are going to be presented by Yang. He's going to show us how to build a React UI visually with a tool that he's working on building called Plasmic. But before we get started and I hand everything over to Yang, I wanted to talk about Palm Beach Tech. Is anybody not aware of the Palm Beach Tech Slack channel? All right. If anybody's not aware of it, go to palmbeachtech.org. All the way in the bottom, there is a Slack button. Go ahead and sign up for that. There's a very active developers channel in there. If you want to find out new events that are happening around the tech community, not just JavaScript, the events channel is a very active one. If you're looking for a gig,
mamá. ¿Qué hay? Estoy viendo una conferencia, mamá. ¿Qué quieres? Ok, pero ahorita no, mamá. ¿Te puedo robar una? Sí.
Hey, Damien. There. Can everybody mute real quick? Thank you. What was I saying? So there's a very active, if you're looking for a gig, there is a gigs hiring channel. Palm Beach Tech is a nonprofit organization dedicated to building the Palm Beaches into a tech hub. What that means is there is all sorts of companies that are members of Palm Beach Tech, and they have access to the community like this where they can post jobs if they're hiring. If you are someone looking for a job, you can upload your resume and it'll post in the jobs seeking portion, and members of Palm Beach Tech, both company-wise, can find your resume and get connected that way. So that is it for right now. I'm going to leave things over to Yang, and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us, Yang.
Thanks for having me. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to go through our slides. Is this coming through? All right.
Yes, it is. I just want to quickly, I forget to do this. There is a chat function on there. If you want to post a chat question in there, Damien and I will be monitoring that. And if you don't want to interrupt, we'll find a way to interrupt. What is your style of talking? Do you want people just to unmute themselves and talk, or would you prefer Q&A?
Yeah, please feel free to interrupt me, or if there are chats, I probably won't be eyeing that very closely. Feel free to interrupt me on people's behalf.
All right, very cool. Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, thanks for joining. Basically, I'll start with a quick intro. So I'm Yang. I am an engineer working on this project called Plasmic. I'm working on it with a very small team. I'm excited to be here and share a little bit about this project. It's really something that started a while back as a passion project, and it's something I hope can be useful to all React developers, but also just interesting to learn and talk about as a React project in and of itself. It's definitely been a big source of challenges for us and learnings, both technical and otherwise. So with that, I'll jump right into it. So what is Plasmic? It's basically a visual builder for React, and we wanted to solve two different problems with it. This is the first problem, where I'm actually curious, maybe before continuing, I'm not sure if there's a better way to do this in Zoom, but how many of you work with a designer or even multiple designers? If you do, maybe just mention that in the chat. I'm always curious, in my own experience, a lot of the projects I've worked on in the past have, I haven't been able to work with a designer. But when I've had that opportunity, it's always been a lot of fun. And so, one of the issues though, from my own experience working with designers is just collaboration can be complex and time consuming. And what I mean by that is, you have basically designers who, oh, cool. There's a couple of people who are working with designers. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's also what I typically see. Oh, actually, quite a few people. Great.
Yeah, I think everybody here works with designers. We've got a couple people that have backgrounds as designers that are making the transition to coding. So one of
Jeremy.
the things that excited me about this topic was the both angles, where designers looking to code or coders looking to design a little better.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, basically, in our experience working with designers, the collaboration feels clunkier than we think it needs to be. So basically, you have designers who are creating these very high fidelity vector drawings in these design tools that are actually really great, easy breezy design drawing tools. But engineers have to take these and then recreate the design, from scratch by hand using code. And inevitably, there's a ton of things that get missed in that translation because it turns out that we as developers really suck at catching all the rote tasks that you need to implement, or it can just be hard to translate because designs are freeform drawings, and so you can do whatever you want. So this leads to a lot of back and forth between design and engineering, and ultimately you have these two sources of truth that by most teams' admission are never truly in sync. So we wanted to streamline that collaboration and that translation process. So that was the first reason for working on this. Now, the second reason is a little more selfishly for developers, just wanting a better and sort of rethought development experience for those of us working on front ends. And, what I mean by that is basically just being able to build a lot faster and get, rapid iteration and instantaneous feedback, and at the same time eliminate, an entire class of visual bugs or QA or related tooling that you might have to employ today. UI builders are nothing new. They're actually very widely used and have generated perfectly fine code that ships into all sorts of major apps for a long time, and especially on other platforms like iOS and Android and Windows, where there's kind of this clear company backing the platform. So we wanted to bring some of that to the web. So yeah, that's basically what Plasmic is. It's a visual builder to let developers, that's our main focus, but we're also trying to keep it accessible to designers as well. Developers or designers craft these, complex real world presentational components that exist in a bunch of different states, et cetera, and then have those be things that you can import into your own code base, your real world legacy messy React code base. And the idea is to let you, move a lot faster and also fix designer developer collaboration if that's the environment you're in. So with that, that's a lot of words to set the stage, but I'm going to switch gears into a demo of the product. So this is it. It's basically a browser-based tool, and I'll get started just by creating a new project. For this demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a to-do MVC app. So just as a refresher, this is kind of what it looks like, everyone's favorite example reference app. I'm not going to create the whole thing. I'm just going to create a small subset of it, approximately. There's, there's a bunch of ways to get started. If you already have a design for this in something like Figma, we actually have this Figma plugin that you can use to slurp out that design, and it does all the, the grunge work of translating Figma's document representation into web standards, which is actually a ton of work, that we try to automate. But for this demo, I'm actually going to show you a different flow where I'm actually just going to create things from scratch. And so this is sort of the canvas where you just get to draw and start with even very rough ideas on the screen. So I'm just going to start by creating this title here. I'm going to make it a certain style and give it a certain color. And I'm just slapping ideas onto the screen willy-nilly. I'm not really worrying about real layout or anything like that. I'm going to set the background of the whole page to be this off-white warm gray, maybe a little bit lighter, like so. And this is the kind of rapid iteration and flow that we're trying to enable with this. So this is my first task, and inside of this task, I'm going to draw a box for the check box itself. I'll make it rounded, remove the background here. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that helicopter in the background. I'm going to close the window.
It's ice coming. Don't scare people in Florida that way.
We could hear it, but it wasn't loud, just so you know.
Okay.
It was barely.
So let's see, yeah, I was just creating this check mark here, and right next to it, I'll add some text for the actual task itself. Let's buy some milk, and I'll make this a little bit larger, make it a little bit lighter font color. Maybe I'll save this color actually as a reusable color token called text color. And yeah, so the idea, this is the workflow that we're trying to enable, is just like really rapid iteration, instantaneous feedback. So you're not guessing, checking hex values or flex basis, and using dev tools and copying values back and forth from dev tools in your source code. And so I think more importantly, it's the fact that you're starting with this like very rough design, everything's freeform, et cetera. But then from there, you should be able to refine this into something real, something that's robust and hygienic and ready for actually deploying into production, because that's really the end goal of what you're creating here. It's not like a throwaway design, it's actually what goes into production. So yeah, basically start rough, refine, and you have something that's real, and we'll see that in action. So this is my task so far. Now, of course, I want a bunch of these. So the first thing I'll do is I'll click this and create a component out of it called task. And at this point, I can copy and paste this a bunch of times to instantiate it, like roughly in this kind of vertical list. Now, from here, this is just roughly arranged, but I can lasso these into a real vertical stack, which is what keeps everything ordered and aligned always. And this is powered by Flexbox, but it actually has a bunch of features that we'll see in a bit to really streamline layout. But I'm going to align everything to the top, align everything to the left. I can double click an edge to auto size the content vertically and also horizontally. These are some of the simpler features. We'll see some more interesting use cases. And I'll call this element task list. I can give it a name. This is just to help keep my layers, my elements organized, but at the same time, this will come in handy for the code generation part, which we'll see later. So this is my list of tasks. It's currently pretty boring because everything is telling me to buy some milk. But let's say I wanted different text on these things, and in fact I want it to be variable, right? So what I can do is I can double click this component to drill into editing it. By the way, I'm just kind of flying through this demo so I can get to the next part of this talk, which is talking about like how all this works, etc. But yeah, again, feel free to interrupt me with questions.
Someone had a question of how did you get that checkbox and the text are part of the same component? It looked like you only had the rectangle selected.
Yeah. So this is the nesting behavior where, like, let's say, I'm gonna. Why is my cursor not changing? So there's something going on with my cursor. In the browser.
It was changing there for a second.
Yeah. Oh, my browser's frozen. My browser freezes actually once a day. So it'll come back, but maybe after a minute. But the short answer is that there's a nesting behavior to this where, come on.
Well, this is a good question, Zhang. So if you copy that URL, will we, if you will be able to continue using this?
Yes. Yeah. Everything's auto-saves.
And is this shareable? Can I copy that URL? Would that be how I would share this? Say if you wanted me to continue with this. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You would have to create an account, but otherwise, yes.
Understood.
With URL. And so the nesting behavior is that you can draw a box. You can draw a box within that box, and if you move the outer box, everything inside of it is nested and goes along with it. Same thing if I lasso things into this another outer box, everything is belonging to that. So that's kind of the default behavior. I can move things out of the box and also back into the box. And so when I extract something as a component, what that does is it takes that whole tree here, which you can see the structure of this over here on the left. So as I move things in and out, you can see that nesting behavior reflect that, etc. So anyway, that's a quick summary of how this works. So yeah, this task that I've extracted includes the checkbox and the text. Now, if I double click this to edit it, now I'm editing the primary copy of this component. So when I make changes, all the instances update. But the only thing I'll do for now is I'm going to take this text and I'm going to right click it and convert it to what's called a slot. And slots are basically like poking a hole in the component so that from outside of the component, from any one of these instances, I can actually select that slot and, for instance, just, change the text, make to-do app, show a demo. But of course, you can actually fill it with arbitrary content. It doesn't have to just be changing the text. I'm going to adjust this spacing just a little bit. Great. So the only other thing I wanted to do with this component is actually design what it looks like in a bunch of different states. So for that, the first thing I'll do, I will right-click this component to pop it out into its own new artboard. And so now I'm working on it in isolation. If you're familiar with things like Storybook, et cetera, it's a similar paradigm, just letting you focus on one thing at a time. Now, to model things like states and variations and interactions, et cetera, there's a single unifying concept in Plasmic called variance. And the way that works is I'm going to create a group of variants called states, for instance. And maybe I'll design what this looks like in its completed state, when it's being edited, or when it's marked high priority. And actually for this demo, I'm just going to design out the completed state. And for that, what I want is for there to be a check mark in this checkbox. So I like the look of this check mark in the reference app. So I'm going to screen grab this real quick, copy it to the clipboard. And actually, I don't think I copied that right. I'll copy it to the clipboard. And now I will just paste it in here. I'll adjust it at a pixel level, resize it a little bit, center it. I can also use real layout to center it, but it doesn't really matter for this case. And then now, I can switch between my base appearance and my complete appearance. To show you kind of what's going on, this complete appearance is not like a copy of the base component. It's actually just, the minimum set delta of overrides on top of the base appearance. So if I clone this view, so I have another one of these views, and I arrange it side by side, and I set this one to be looking at the base appearance, and the one on top to be looking at the complete appearance, you can see that they're still linked. So if I make changes to the base appearance, that does update the complete appearance. And then the complete appearance, everything I make that's specific to the complete appearance that's being recorded there is just overrides or deltas on top of the base appearance. Hopefully that that made sense. I feel like my description was
that
more
made a lot of sense to me and is really freaking cool.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Figma and Adobe XD have this state where you make a component, and you can have different states that you can render that component in a different state in.
Yeah. So in design tools, you usually have things like overrides on top of components, which is actually like a kind of a different paradigm from variance, because variance is more like centralized to the component itself. More akin to how you might model things in your code. But anyway, this is basically the one delta is that I want this check mark to appear. Maybe another delta is that I want the text here to be strike out, and also I'm going to make it lighter color, like so it's dimmer. So yeah, anyway, now I'm kind of seeing the side-by-side difference of my complete appearance and my base appearance. Now from here, maybe another thing that I want is for there to be a like hover interaction with this component. So the thing about variants is that you can have any number of them combined multiply at a time. So what I'll do is I'll add a hover state, hover variant here. And for the hover variant, maybe anytime I hover over any part of the task, I want this box here, this checkbox, to become darker. So I'm just going to set it to be darker. So now I can actually hopefully try this out in live mode. Great. So that's close to what I want. But I notice another thing that I want is for there to be a hand pointer on that element as well. So I'm going to set the cursor to be a pointer, and I'll try it again. Okay, that's better. So you can get this really rapid iteration, and then the variants that come with the component anywhere it goes. So that I think is one of the key differences with overrides. And so back in my main screen, I can select any one of these instances. I can set it to the complete state. I can play this whole thing. As I'm interacting with these things, it's a little nuanced, but you can see that we're dynamically combining the the complete state with the hover state here in this middle case, because everything is just recorded as overrides. So basically I think that is pretty much everything I wanted to do for designing out this really simple app. Maybe the last thing I'll do is I'll give it some real layout instead of just free floating everything. So I'll set everything to be a column layout. and centered, and yeah, maybe that's it. I'll add some padding to the top and bottom here. Great. So I'll call this whole screen my to-do app component. So now I have two components, my to-do app and my task component. And from here, the next part is the interesting part, which is how do I integrate this into the code base? Really simple way you can get going with experimenting with that is with this code sandbox integration that Plasmic comes with. So you can just quickly spin up a sandbox where, I have something funky in my development environment right now where I changed my hosts. So this might not work. Yeah, just ignore this. This is because I was developing things. But basically, you can quickly spin up a code sandbox to play with things just in your browser. Another thing is, I think the more interesting part is pulling this into your own sort of local code base. So for that, there's this CLI that you can install, which I already have installed, so I'm going to skip that step. But the first step you run to get started using it in a project is running Plasmic init from your project base directory. So I'm going to copy that and back in my terminal. So this directory, it's just a blank React app. In case you're curious what a blank React app looks like, this is just this spinning logo, a create React app, I should say. Now, I'm going to paste this command, Plasmic init. It's going to ask me some basic questions. I'm just going to go with the defaults here. And the next command I'll run after that is basically this sync command. This is what actually pulls down the components. So I'm going to paste this here. And this should pull down the two components, the task component and the to-do app component. And now I'm going to pull up my code editor. So I have my code on the left and my running app on the right. And the first thing I'll do is I'll replace all this boilerplate here with just getting things onto the screen. So I'll get this to-do app. It's being a little slow. I'll just render the to-do app as a whole in the root of the app. And with that, I have exactly what I created in the tool, running Pixel Perfect in the browser. In my real React app. Now, from here, you of course want to actually wire this up to your real business logic and state and event handlers and whatnot. So I'm going to drill into this to-do app to start with that. There's a lot of comments here, but the file is super simple. Like it's just this one line really. It's just a very thin wrapper around. So you have the to-do app, which is a wrapper around the Plasmic to-do app. So the way things work is this file is something that's just a starter boilerplate that is generated for you by Plasmic. You can do whatever you want with this file. It's owned by you. You can replace all the contents here with a class-based component. You can delete it. You can render something that isn't even the Plasmic to-do app. And then Plasmic to-do app is what's actually managed by Plasmic, and it reflects the design that you created. And all it does is it's just a dumb presentational component. So basically, you're given this library of presentational components, and you can do whatever you want with them. And it has this interface that is quite flexible and lets you reach in and attach props to any elements inside of that component. So it's a simple scheme. To show it in action, I'm gonna
is the reasoning for that, Yang, so that now if you go back to Plasmic and you make changes to the style, you can re-import those components and it won't overwrite your business logic here. It'll just overwrite the dumb styled components.
Correct. That's one half of the reason is to maintain a separation between the presentation and the logic, so that the presentation can be managed by the design tool, so that you can actually incrementally make updates and iterate on the design instead of it just being a one-time eject. So that's exactly, I think, what you were alluding to. Now, the other reason is because actually just as feedback from people, from our early users, people like the idea of being able to pull in a library of components that similar to any library of components from npm, et cetera, that they can just render as is and not have to be exposed to the code that's inside of it, for instance. But this is actually one of two different very polar opposite schemes. So I'll show you what the other scheme looks like in a little bit as well. But for this, to show how to use this presentation library, I'm going to assume that I have some state living in some React state here. Maybe I have a list of tasks that is actually a use state. And maybe my tasks are just simple JS objects with a name property. So I have 3 of these, and I'm going to wire this up to my my design by now I can reference, for instance, elements by their name. So if you remember that task list element that I named earlier, I'm going to replace all of its contents with just a list of tasks of my own. And to render this task, I'm going to use the other component that we synced down, this task component. And I'm going to save this, and we should see, we should see the new sort of updated list of my own choosing here. And you can continue in this fashion and keep wiring things up in the task itself, and in the you can attach whatever handlers you want, etc. To this thing. And yeah, so that's pretty much how it works. Now, exactly, I forget who just chimed in, but this ability to iterate on the design further is really important for any project. Oh, thanks. So what I'm going to do to show that in action is I'm going to turn on this watch mode. And so I'll have, so what watch mode does is it'll live stream any edits that I make in the design directly into my code base. So I'll have the, oh, did I screw up something here? Module disk. Oh, did I break something? That's weird.
Oh, if you look, Yang, it was saying ... task.
Yeah, it was. I'll try restarting this, see if that. Oh, I think it was a weird caching issue in React Dev Server. Sometimes it does that, on me at least. I don't know if it's just me or if anybody else sees bugs like that.
I've had that happen. Okay,
good. So I'm going to turn on watch mode, and with watch mode, I'm live streaming edits from the design tool into the app. So I'm going to have my running app on the right. See, it keeps doing that. That is really weird and frustrating. So I'll have this running on the right, and then my edits on the left. So for instance, let's say I wanted to actually make some violent changes to the layout of this thing. So I'm going to replace this vertical list with a set of tiles. So the first thing I'll do is I'll double click this component to edit it. I'll make it look a little bit boxier, and maybe I'll give it some real layout that's top aligned, and maybe some padding as well here. And I'll take this check box and I'll pop it out of its place from this free floating to make it free floating, and I'll move it down to the bottom right, and I'll pin it to the bottom right, like so. This is my new task, what it looks like. Now, it's still a vertical list, but I want this to be tiled set of rows. So I'm going to make it a row. Of course, now it's going to overflow the edge. So I'm going to turn on wrapping. And now I'm going to resize this so that it's a little tighter. It's hard for me to tell the difference apart with these different tasks at their borders. So I'm going to add some gap in the vertical direction as well as the horizontal direction. So anyway, you can see some of the more interesting, layout features that we really try to streamline. And if you think about how to implement something like, cross-browser gap that is tolerant of wraps and things like that, it's actually, not trivial. You end up fighting with selector specificity and whatnot. So these are the things that we're trying to really make as simple as possible in the tool. Basically, you can just iterate on the design freely and have that streamed into your code base. So I think there was something going on with my.
It was making a change. I saw it happening.
That's bizarre. Anyway.
Yeah, it was when you did the wrap, things broke. At least didn't display all the other changes displayed. It's pretty impressive.
Well.
Yeah, that was great. It was working live up and then it crashed.
almost. Anyway, yeah.
It would be a code demo of things, dude.
Exactly. Maybe this is usually my my catch-all solution to things is just restarting the dev server. So that is pretty much. Oh, see there. I just don't know what's going on. Anyway, so this is the workflow that we wanted to enable with this. Is just letting you iterate visually on the actual visuals of the product. So that's it for the demo. I'm gonna switch back to my slides. So now we get into some of the, the behind the scenes stuff. And there's a bunch of challenges with this. I'll start with the technical challenges. I think a constant one for us is worrying about state management and the state management infrastructure to keep things performant. And by that, I mean, low latency. Like for instance, you have a lot of these drag operations that you really want to ideally keep as smooth as possible in the app. And by that, you usually have a, like if you're shooting for 60 FPS, you have a frame budget of like 16 milliseconds that you're trying to fit within. And if you want to make sure you're not busting that budget, you have to just break down the work into as minimum a set of work that you can, so that things are snappy. And React, by default, it kind of is very liberal in re-rendering things. But that's why there's all these different state management solutions for letting you achieve, in a developer or ergonomic way, fine-grained updates to your state. Because this is a product with a lot of different, a lot of very deep state throughout the app, and a lot of different surfaces that reflect the same state again and again in different ways. And so, you want to make these updates consistently throughout the app, but in a way that's still snappy. And what makes that hard is a combination of latency and scalability. And what I mean by that is, right now I have like these 3 artboards on the screen, but if you imagine, 100 of them, or surfaces with a lot more complex UI than this, basically, for us, that meant breaking down that work into as many different incremental units as possible, so that you can fit within that budget and deprioritize things that don't need to immediately go into be reflected. So I'll show you one example of this. Is like, let's say I'm as I'm dragging this object over here, you can notice it updating in the other artboards. But this is like one of these things where we can control the priority of these things, right? The thing that you're dragging always has the highest priority, but you can see there's a little bit of lag actually between when I drag this thing around and when you see the other objects updating. Well, I don't know if you can see that clearly through Zoom. I just realized Zoom is also
we can see it, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
We probably get it more exaggerated than what you're seeing.
Right. So anyway, this is one example of a place where we really try and break down the work as much as possible. And the architecture of this thing is, this whole studio is a React TypeScript application, but each of these artboards is itself also a full React TypeScript application that is being manipulated directly by the tool. So yeah, each of these is running in its own iframe, and so that's anyway, just FYI, this is how things work.
Well, explain that part. That was very interesting. Why are they iframes and not components or something that?
Yeah, great question. So there's a few reasons for this. One is just isolation of things like styles and layout. If, for instance, you have like responsive designs, or even if you have like things like modals or other things that kind of expect to take over your whole screen, you generally want those compartmentalized to the iframes and not taking over your whole studio and breaking out of that container. The other reason is for basically compartmentalization of for security reasons. If you I'll mention this. Actually, I think this is my next point, but you can actually bring in foreign code components into this and compose them together. Of course, the moment you do that, you are allowing arbitrary code to run in the canvas, and so you want to make sure that is staying within the canvas and not reaching out into your studio, for instance.
Makes sense. And are you doing WebSockets to synchronize them all together?
So we actually right now there's it's complicated. There is message passing.
All right.
If you are able to communicate with the iframe, like for instance, there's actually 2 layers of abstraction. There's like each of these iframes here that is running on its own, but there's also an iframe for the whole studio that is separate from the domain of the origin here, studio.plasmic.app. So the iframe of the whole studio is allowed to directly communicate with these nested iframes because they're running in the same, null origin. But that itself is separate from the origin of the container app. If that makes
Understood. Sense. That's an amazing part. I understood that you couldn't control that, and so you found a trick about it. That's great. Incredible.
Now, so that is actually the next thing, which is in order to accommodate code components, there's a bunch of like dynamic module loading infrastructure. There's just a lot of work that had to happen to load that in a secure way. But also, there's a bunch of code introspection that we need to do. So you basically, there's a tool, arcli, that you can point at any code base. And what it does is it crawls that code base, it surfaces all the React components it can find, be they functional or class-based, and then also reflects out the props that they take, whether it's documented by TypeScript or prop types or what have you, and basically exposes these as knobs in the design tool so that, and it can be a little nuanced because, some of these props you want to be knobs on the right-hand side, but some of them are like children props that you kind of expect to be able to manipulate directly in the canvas by dragging and dropping things in. And so that, there's basically just a bunch of work into introspecting out the prop types and making a best effort, initial stab at what the props should be and what the controls should be. And then from there, you can refine it if you want to be like higher fidelity.
Yang,
so the idea here is like you can pull in like Ant or Material UI or whatever you want.
Right.
So the artboard itself is an iframe, and the whole studio is an iframe, and then each component is an iframe, but not like the pieces within the component, right? Those, like, you don't have iframe with an iframe with like, so the circle and like the circle and the text within the task are not their own iframes, but the task is an iframe.
Yes, exactly. So these here's an iframe, here's an iframe, here's an iframe, and this whole studio is its own iframe as well. Yeah.
So you're basically using iframes almost like components in React.
Yeah. So there's like these components, like the task instance, like these instances of the task component that are not iframes. This is just one React app running here.
Okay.
But then like the top level, these like roots artboards are what are
okay.
iframes. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I was confused about that.
Oh yeah. Anyway, that's what gives us the top level isolation. And there's also some product challenges here. So I mentioned briefly, making layout more intuitive, and distilling layout is one of these things where, like if you just want two text divs to sit side by side and horizontally stretch to fill the available space given to them, you might try setting something like flex 1. But you may or may not be surprised at the results of that, right? And there's always an explanation if you dig. So for instance, in this case, flex row of 1 is a multiple of the flex basis. And when you have things side by side like that in flex direction row, the basis is the width, defaults to the width, and which in turn defaults to auto, which is, in this case, it means the maximum content size. So effectively what that means is you have these two text divs that are, you set flex to 1, but they're actually growing at different speeds depending on the text that's currently in them at the present time, which is just crazy to me. But that's one of just recent cuts, and there's many cuts that at least get to me when wrangling layout and 10 different ways to do things. Like, why not just set 50% width on these things and call it a day? Well, you'll find out soon enough like what the downsides are to that. And so getting things, most of the time you just want things to wrap or to stretch or to be a fixed size, for instance. And then there's like the layout arrangements that I showed earlier. And just trying to like package that into a small set of, as non-redundant as possible set of controls that you can wield effectively.
So the person on your team who is working on that, is there a dedicated front-end architect that is focused on that, or is everybody on your team a full stack developer trying to tackle the front end but is more comfortable with the back?
Jeremy, you have a job. You don't need another job. I don't know. Go ahead and answer that. I'm sorry.
It's a really small team, so we actually have I think there's like 3 full engineers on the team, and we are just like full stack.
Yeah, the reason I ask is, you know, your explanation to the flex problem is a lot of people come into that conversation and be like, this is why CSS sucks, and I'm like, well, that's just the specification. As a front end
Right.
architecture, I focus a lot on the style architecture as well as the user interaction layer and whatnot. I can take care of the back end, but that's not my focus. And a lot of people with full stack development are more back end developers that are pretending to be front end developers. So the question is more in the sense of, is there anybody on the team that understands the nuances of CSS and why that does that, instead of it being a burden or a hassle for you guys to figure out?
Let me see if I can wrap that up. CSS sucks, so use Bootstraps. Bootstraps sucks, so use Flex Grid. Redflit sucks, so use CSS Grid. No? All right.
I mean,
please.
kind of, but yeah.
No. But he has a very good point. Go ahead.
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, we've worked on a lot of front end products in our time,
Okay.
but wouldn't call ourselves like super deep CSS
Okay.
experts or anything like that. We just try to make products work, and this is from our experience in big companies and small companies, and so we're trying to make something that is that tries to package up the power of CSS and expose it in a more intuitive way for the common case. But inevitably there are cases, some percentage of the time where you want to drop down into a lower level of control and be able to express things at finer granularity, and you can still do that. But just trying to paper over like most of the differences.
If there was something where I created a CSS style that wasn't necessarily reflected with a UI interface right now, does my CSS style, because like you're showing a connection between live coding the UI in Plasmic and seeing it reflect in the code. If I change something in the code, is that automatically reflected in Plasmic?
No, so the flow is one way. So I guess that's similar to the React paradigm itself. Just trying to make sure that your production concerns are not making their way back into the design. Now, you have the ability to override things flexibly in the code. So
okay, are they style guides, style components?
So these are plain CSS that we generate. It's the lowest common denominator that is typically most accepted by a lot of these bundlers and tools.
Okay.
But basically you can choose to write style components on top of that and include those classes in the overrides that you pass into the presentational components, for instance.
So are the presentational components meant to like never be touched, is what you're saying? Like other than with
right,
the UI?
exactly. The presentational components are supposed to be black box from you, so that you don't have to worry about what's in them.
So any styles that I need to create, I would need to create outside of the like if I wanted to manually create some styles.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And the idea is, similar to pulling in any sort of library from NPM, like I mean, you can always eject right from the system and just like or not worry about maintaining the link with the design tool and just like run with the code that you generate.
Okay.
But
in the future, when we do need new improvements on both sides, we can still go that one direction. You make the improvements on the UI, I continue with the improvements with the code, and we don't have to start from scratch again, right? We can.
Right. If you keep the link live, then yes, that's right.
Excellent.
Yeah, these are great questions. Please keep them coming.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch more, so if anybody else has got those, I'll stop talking.
Could you show us the CSS generated? Is it
Yeah,
like
yeah. Of
the
course.
JavaScript style CSS or regular CSS?
Yeah, let's see. So if you're looking at the to-do app itself, this is kind of the stuff there, and then there's like the to-do, or where is it, Plasmic task. So these are just the things that we basically shield you from. So, and then you know, the interface that you deal with typically is here.
Okay.
In fact,
You've adopted a
thinking
BEM
of
style.
moving away from this and just giving you like the straight up, you know, dist version of these. So that you know, it's similar to, you know, the dist versions of npm packages that you pull down.
And I see your style is mimicking your naming convention is BEM.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of these, you know, I think CSS architecture type tech debt that we see a lot in teams that we try to bake in as best practices in the tool. So another example of this is like isolated layout isolation when it comes to components, like making sure that your root element doesn't have a margin on it or something like that, or other things that can break the encapsulation of layout. Yeah, there's a lot of things like that that I haven't.
Okay. Before you change this screen at all, I've never seen this before and I'm really confused, but your line numbers count down from 25 to 1 and then go to 51 and then start counting up. I'm not sure what's going on there.
You're going to get him expelled from the Bay Area if you start complaining about the you know, the smart plugins he has in Visual Studio Code.
This is just my the line numbering option.
Oh, it's showing you the differential, like
yeah, the
20
relative
lines up.
Yeah, so if I want to jump 9 lines up, I can write 9 and then K, which is because I'm using Vim mode. So
that's it. It's Vim.
There we go.
See, it wasn't Ben.
There we go.
It wasn't Ben, Jeremy. It was Vim.
Yeah, it's using both.
Nice.
My own weirdness. And then I think another interesting product challenge is around, I mentioned at the start, being able to import things from design tools like Figma. So there's just a lot of grunge work that happens in mapping your Figma document representation into web standards. And this is because, you know, Figma comes from a more graphic design background. So if you think about, you know, CSS, you can have things like inner shadows and outer shadows, but in Figma, you can also have centered borders. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with things like, you know, when you have different layers in Figma, you can have layer masks that clip things or blend things, and setting blend modes on layers as well. So these are all things that we try and take care of as much as possible, so that you start from a place of having something that is a high fidelity, and then from there, the additional work of turning that into something that's production ready is more about the higher level restructuring of the like the component structure, for instance, modeling these as real components with real variants and slots and whatnot. But I think the most interesting challenge for us was really around the code integration. And you know, this is like, if you think about what's natural for visual direct manipulation and what's natural for expressing in code, you know, we wanted to marry the best of both worlds and find the most natural and most flexible interface for doing so. And the idea is really you should have the freedom to structure the component code as you see fit. And this is for practical reasons. Like, you know, at the end of the day, I just need to attach event handlers to my divs, right? Or wire them up to some real state. But also what I will call aesthetic reasons as well. So these are things like, I want to own the interface to my the prop interface to my components, right? And our thinking, like for instance, you know, this task component here, you know, it currently takes the children, and I can also pass in things like, you know, my states is whatever. But this is just like a starter sort of interface, and maybe this is not how I want to express things. Maybe instead of taking in these children and whatnot, I want to just pass in a high-level task object, and whatever that is, and it internally decides what children it sets, what state it's in, etc. It's not like a fully controlled component like that. So I want to own that interface, and so there's two different schemes. I already quickly described the presentational library scheme, which is we just give you this library of dumb presentational components that you can override however you want. And so this file, the to-do app file, is owned by you. The Plasmic to-do app is managed by Plasmic. And this is where you can add all the state and logic and behavior. You can also choose not to even render this at all if you want to substitute it with a different like component that already exists. Now the other approach is this direct edit scheme, and this is actually quite different. And it's actually I'll see if I can demo it here. But basically, I'm gonna first switch everything over from the presentational library scheme to the direct scheme, and I'll save that, and I'll force regenerate everything. So I'm starting from a clean slate. Now this is the direct edit scheme, where we basically give you direct access to the JSX tree, and you can start directly manipulating this and making your edits there. So for instance, if I want to delete these tasks here, I want to wrap this whole thing in a loop like so, and actually make it expression. Maybe I want to add an on-click handler to my title here. I don't know why you would want to do that, but if you want to do that, and then maybe I'll wrap this whole thing in a MobX observer if I'm using that. And maybe I'll add a div at the end for the footer. That is just some code component that is more convenient to include like that. Then anyway, there's all these things that you can just like do with the JSX tree. And basically when I am making further changes to this thing, I don't know, what's a good example? Like I'll just add another div here, and I don't know, I'll delete this guy, and not feeling very creative, but obviously if you change any of the styles, it doesn't really change the JSX structure, etc. But let's say those are the changes I make, and whoops, if I can spell Plasmic Sync again. Then in this scheme, what it tries to do is it tries to rebase your changes on top of the the latest presentational code. So for instance, that div now appears here. I even forget what all the other changes I made already to the presentation, but
yeah, they're there. You had the map, 2 lines down,
right,
and the observer and the on-click for the type.
Yeah, so you can think of it as similar to a Git line-based rebase if you're familiar with that algorithm. But we actually have awareness of JSX syntax, so we can do something a lot more fine-grained and smarter here than a line-based rebase. And we can do that rebase because we have ancestral information about the common lineage of. We can do this 3-way diff, right, where you have the common ancestor and the left and the right, and you can figure out how to merge like that. So
That's pretty cool.
Anyway, that is it for the code gen schemes, and you can mix and match both. Both are equally expressive, and it comes down to your sort of preference on which scheme you want. But most people I think tend to prefer the first scheme here, the presentational library scheme. Now the impact on the workflow for us at least is one thing that's nice is because you're really approaching this from a top-down perspective. It encourages you to think more thoroughly about what the end goal is that you're building toward. What is the product experience that you want to build toward, and then fill in all the business logic and the code and service of that end goal. So it's more of a top-down approach as opposed to a bottom-up approach, which sometimes has its advantages, but for product work, it can also lead to more bumbling, kind of figuring out the right thing by accident. Another impact on our workflow is if you do work with designers, the ability to welcome them into the production workflow is actually pretty amazing. We have Leo, our designer. He is, and there's just something really magical about this is a recent example about running Plasmic Sync, and a nicer version of your landing page just appears in your code base, and then you can just like ship that. I think the third impact is sidestepping a lot of these tooling that you might have in place for, like, if, for instance, if you're manually QAing your designs and your code to make sure things line up, that's a whole category of things that you kind of sidestep because you're declaratively modeling exactly what the final product should look like. And I think this is the most fun part for me. So we actually just we were kind of building this thing for a long time, and just under 2 weeks ago we publicly shared this thing for the first time. So starting to share our progress more publicly, and we've had some early users that have been building lots of different things in it. But I think the most out there thing is this control panel for autonomous vehicle LiDAR sensors. Definitely would never anticipate that, but just a bunch of other things. And I mean, this list is much longer now. But of course, Plasmic itself is also built in Plasmic, so I can show you this Plasmic kit project that we have for various parts. This is like a subset of the things that are going on. But if I, various parts
of Inception, basically.
Yeah. Chrome itself are, like our settings page where you generate API tokens, our various components, primitive components, are things like the share dialog and the code sandbox dialog. These are all like, modeled here. Our various drop downs of this entire left pane of stuff that you have here. The dashboard itself, which is like what you see when you kind of first log in to the app, etc. These are, keyboard is, but yeah, this is the
Yang, are you guys, what is the financial model for the plan for this? Is this going to be open source, or
yeah, great question.
Going to be pay to play?
So our intention is to keep this as freely accessible to people as possible, because I think that's what is more important to us than like optimizing for revenue in day one. So right now, this is a free tool for individuals and small teams, and it's completely free right now in this sort of early preview state. But our plan is, eventually to basically sustain it and make money from larger companies that use it.
Very cool.
Fantastic, Jay. So you're essentially telling us sign up quickly.
Well, no, I mean, we want to keep it free forever for individuals and small teams. So, but yeah, we definitely welcome your feedback and playtesting. I mean, we're so early right now that your feedback is it's going to have a meaningful impact on our direction. And if you do sign up, just there's like this hopefully not too long survey that you are presented with. But if you just mention this meetup as how you heard about this, then we'll get you an invite, because right now the wait list is quite long. So.
Very cool. And I was fortunate enough to get a invite a little while ago when Yang brought this up to me, and I've been playing around with it. Nothing too extensive, but this looks powerful. This might make me switch from Vue to React.
Wow. No, thank you so much for the words. Yeah, I mean, kind of a random.
Yes, Jeremy, come to the dark side. Yes.
I mean, I like the fact that I saw a TypeScript
as a Vue tool and not a React tool. But at some point, we decided to just focus on where all of our users were. So
nice. Maybe there's a spinoff, or it can export out to Vue in the future, which leads me into one of my questions. What does the roadmap for Plasmic look like? What features do you guys add, and what does 1.0 look like? What's the future hold?
Yeah, I think the roadmap right now is focusing on React in the near term, and we do eventually want to support other web frameworks. And the main things we're working on right now are I mean, there's just a lot of improvements to the design tool experience and the development experience, our code integration schemes. A lot of this is like very hot off the press in terms of like the code integration schemes that I showed you. So making those even more, ergonomic and nicer. And the code components work is kind of one big focus for us. So like I mentioned, being able to bring in your components from elsewhere, whether these are your own components or like Ant or Material or Onsen components. So that's one big focus. And there's, I think another big focus for us is currently our, like the refactoring tools in Plasmic. I mean, I think there's a huge opportunity for building some like very powerful refactoring tools for visually, telling what changed, what are the effects of your upstream component changes on the rest of your UI, or like consolidating, things that were different components into like variants of the same component, or
Okay.
So
what is what is a roadmap between V1? Like, what's your release cycle? I mean, like, are you guys releasing quarterly? Is it as fast as they ship the products, the feature ship? Or how soon to V1 is basically the question.
Yeah, good question. I think for things like code components and these refactoring tools, we're really shooting for the next couple of months. So I think that's the time frame.
So very active development there. Nice.
Yeah.
While you were talking, there was a couple of chats going back and forth in the chat room talking about this. This is pretty amazing. I made the statement of like this reminds me of browser sync, but for like a design tool, right?
Oh, cool.
And someone rebutted with, it looks like what we always thought modern design tools have, Figma. And I think like this started way back in the day with like Macaw, like code or design visually and put out the code that would go out. That was a very early one back in Kickstarter, but I want to say 2014. And we've seen iterations go over this over and over again. And it's the visual editors haven't quite caught up with how to code.
Right.
So what challenges are you finding while building this that makes the design aesthetics of this or complexities translating that over to code? Is it the translation, the two different worlds? Is it the fact that React changes every 6 months and you have to keep up with that, or what challenges do you have in that context?
Yeah, I think the targeting of the frameworks is I think definitely a challenge in that right now we can only accommodate React because we're such a small team, and we want to do a good job of React first before like spreading ourselves into other frameworks. So that's definitely like a challenge in that it's just like the sheer number of frameworks that you can target. But I think within React, or within a single framework, I think it's really this like this is probably the thing that makes it the hardest, and why we think it hasn't been solved by a lot of tools today is it took us a long time to really arrive at like the codegen schemes that we have today, and trying to make it feel and look and feel in your code base as simple and direct as possible, but powerful and flexible so that you can have control over the things you need to have control over. So
very cool. And another thing I was doing was go ahead.
Sorry, what was there? There's a I'm trying to think of what app was it? Was it Figma, or what's the one? It's not Figma. There's an app that came out that promised to do this, and they had like it wasn't
so many processes along these lines.
It wasn't. No, it was it was a Framer.
Yeah.
Framer attempted to do something like this. Framer X, I think, and they promised like you were gonna design, and it was gonna give you actual real React components. And I tried it in the beginning, and it was garbage.
Yeah,
depending on your project, it might be real enough. It's right there. It's a real.
No. I think Framer's own admission and focus is that they're focused on prototyping and not building production apps. So, I think this is reflected in our user bases. Framer is primarily used by strictly designers, and then our tool is more used by hybrids and developers as well. So it's one of the, I think, the big different use cases. So we're not really directly competitive with them or anything like that. Same thing with Figma. But yeah, I mean, our job is really to integrate with these tools better, so you can bring in your exploratory messy designs from there and then refine it in Plasmic.
I've got a couple more questions, but I want to give the floor to anybody who hasn't had a chance to ask yet.
Hey, this is Lily. So
Hello.
first, thanks for doing this, and this looks really cool. So I'm looking forward to actually getting my hands on this. I'm actually going through the survey, as you sign up, and you're assuming that everyone is working for a company right now. So as I'm going through the questions, not all of this applies. Not all of us also are working directly with React at the moment. For example, I went through training, but I've been working on other software development tools. So that's just something to keep in mind, as you go through these survey questions. But
Got it.
Yeah, but as I've taken some React and Redux and different classes on Udemy, I think that this is something that's going to be really useful. So I'm really interested in getting my hands on this and playing, especially because I have a strong UI UX background. So thanks for this.
Awesome. Glad to hear, and thanks for the feedback on the survey. Yeah, feel free to skip the questions that don't really, aren't really relevant for you. And yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
I got one. When will this project be released? I mean, this framework.
So right now, we have these early adopters who are they're already using the product, but I think when we have code components, I feel like that's really the main milestone that I think would really open the floodgates in terms of its applicability to a lot of real world projects where you do really just want to be able to bring in your existing component library and components, your existing design system, rather than like recreate it or recreate some approximation of it. And
you mentioned that was a couple months away.
Yeah,
what you're aiming for.
That's what we're shooting for. And I think at that point we'll be more comfortable actually, releasing this and sharing it on in developer forums and aggregated. But yeah, and we're hoping that at that point we'll also have like a kind of a public sandbox where people can play with it even before like creating an account and whatnot. So
on Hacker News, you got to put it on Product Hunt, right?
Right, yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah. It was really impressive, and I agree with you guys. I think back in 2002, I mean, the idea of the .NET web framework was to do that, to separate the designers from the programmers, and there was always an issue of sync, even though we were all working on the exact same application. And I'm totally impressed with this. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much for the kind words. Yeah, I mean, all credit goes to the team. It's a small but very wonderful team. So.
Which you're a part of. And it really, I just want to echo what Damien said. This is really impressive. And I really appreciate you coming to Florida to give this talk. I have to bolt, but Damien, since you're host, I think I can safely leave. But I really wanted to say thank you so much, Yang. This was really great. And thanks, Jeremy and Damien, for bringing such a great quality talk to us.
Oh,
thank you, Todd.
Yeah.
And helping us for not having my Zoom drop and using your Boca Code one. I appreciate that very much.
Anytime, man. I've got your back always. So
appreciate that.
And
Todd.
Jeremy, that goes to you too.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Very cool. So, I mean, this goes back to our earlier conversation. of the community is really here for everybody. So does anybody else have any other questions before I go into my closing comments?
Yeah, I had another quick one. So once you go through the survey, will you get some sort of confirmation email that, says, hey, we got your request?
I'm right after this. I'll have invites sent to y'all for.
Very kind, Yang. That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So everybody go to what is it? Plasmic.app. I'll put it in the chat.
Show us the one more time the page.
Right,
Yang.
right.
And you definitely check out the chat for that. And the top right, click on login. Oh, request even better.
Yep, all the way at the bottom, there's a request access. Fill out a small form, and they'll get you over a link pretty shortly. Like I said, I've been using this. We talked maybe about a month and a half ago now, and I've used this a couple of times, and it's pretty nice. I like the fact that it's got TypeScript support out of the box. I don't have to think about that. I'm having a little bit of problems connecting Figma to it, but it might be user error versus anything, because I downloaded the app and I'm not seeing plugins, so I think it's a Figma problem, not you guys' problem. Very cool.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I'm happy to help with that. If I'll also paste the link to the. This is the somewhere on my screen. I'm not sure what happened to my Zoom screen. Well, here's a link to the Figma plugin. We actually have a shortcut so that you can go there and grab it and install it.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you so much to Yang for giving this a wonderful presentation. Let's give a virtual clap.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. And yeah, thanks for pulling this together and organizing.
Absolutely. We got a couple of golf claps going on.
Very nice.
Very cool. Maybe
Hi,
after
thank you.
the release and we get some user feedback, you guys, maybe we can do a couple of your coworkers and come on and do a little panel talking about the latest releases and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you back.
Awesome. No, thank you so much.
Perfect.
Right.
And check out your video online. We'll send you the link.
Sweet.
Thank you, Yang. Great presentation. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.